from the Germans. Russians capitalise.
Margins in this game are going to be very, very fine. And can they afford to make that sort of mistake?
Oh, definitely not.
Fink, another disc. The disc from Fink wasn't great. Volzak throws herself at it. Or the disc just threaded the needle past Vasiliev from Volzak. Big run down from the giant Arna Gross. Big Arna, as they call him.
Well, I think, doesn't the word Gross mean?
It literally means big Arna.
Yeah, yeah, big. And it's a very appropriate surname. We see a lot of good Frisbee surnames here at this tournament. But that was lovely play from the Germans. You can see a little communication between the Russian defensive players afterwards, just having a little chat, talking about the adjustments they need to make to stop that vicious upline play, but set up perfectly by Volzak, that lovely threaded inside shot.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot about Levka Volzak, one of the outstanding players on this German side. Young, she's only 23 years old out of Rostock, and part of the Seagulls team who from Hamburg under Nikki Priyan, who won the European Beach Ultimate Club Championships last year, Castlefels.
Unfortunately, Tom, we're not seeing Nikki Priyan grace the field today. She's out with an injury, but coaching from the sideline.
Very valuable presence, even on that sideline. Dumanskaya sends the disc downfield for the Russians. Efficient offense in their first offensive play. A hold, yeah.
A hold for the Russians, and that's one of the things we need to see Germany try and shut down. The connections between the women of Russia mixed are just so slick. We see many names from those World Beach and European Beach Championship winning sides, and there was a good connection. Speaking to Priam ahead of the match, it really is one of the must shutdowns for the German D-line. They can't afford to allow those slick, easy connections to come off with quite so much separation as we saw just there.
We saw Dina Dumanskaya, the 6'3", number 44 shirt, very famous and popular player around the scene.
Yeah, we already mentioned the fact that Vasilyev's a name that strikes perhaps a little jitter in the legs of the players here on this field, but Dumanskaya is just such a physical form.
She normally plays in the handler role on her home team of brilliance. Certainly was doing so over in Ohio last year. Deep in the end zone, and the disc is overshot. Fink goes to ground and just about rescues it. Picks it up off the sand. Floaty forward pass to Schumacher. Schumacher looks off that first option of Volzak. Still cuts coming. Fink available on the reset across field. Continuation into the hands of Kunai.
Yeah, you can see the Germans with options available, but they really want to play conservatively here to make sure the disc is 100% on.
Meistering. Schumacher's available at the front corner. Better from the Germans. They level it up at 2 apiece, but that one break to Russia, the difference between these two teams at the moment.
Yeah, and that just came off a bit of a fluff from the Germans early doors. Literally the first pass going awry, being snaffled up by Vasilyev. But there we see Robert Schumacher, well, the nickname of Shuey, known to the London scene as his Frisbee home. He's currently back in Berlin, and really sort of a well-known player, so perhaps the defenders from the Russian side knowing what he likes to do, but you really saw the quality of his play there as he made that upline cut right as the disc was released, made a really subtle adjustment, just sharpening up sort of to a flatter angle of attack, just making real sure that the defender couldn't make a bid.
Russia with Novikov. Dumanskaya goes to the sand. Sends it to Sasha Pustovaya, who bids 2 hands, made absolutely sure of it. A bit of an awkward angle. The disc was blustering around there. She landed heavily. Kochinova, the first, sorry, Kochnitsky first to congratulate her. Dumanskaya and Pustovaya will connect many, many times in this game. They've connected many, many times in the past. And actually, Dina Dumanskaya credits Pustovaja as being her sporting hero. She has learned a lot from her, and they've played together for many, many years. It's usually the other way around, though. Pustovaja has the big arm.
Well, they both have big arms. That's what makes these players all so dangerous, Tom. At the elite level, you really just... It's a nightmare trying to think, as a defensive matchup, what on earth do I take away? We really saw the Germans squeezing the female players into such tight channels, but just the finesse and poise of Dumanskaya and Pustovaja, just really happy to play and still looking fairly comfortable, even at full stretch layout bids. But Pustovaja, look out for the most difficult throw option, is sort of her go-to game.
Kune to Wolzak. Kunai cutting up the line again. The disc is going to go across the field to Fink. It might catch in the breeze. Fink tries to keep a toe in, but he was already a...
Yeah, where he'd set his foot there, already about 30 centimetres out of the field.
Might have tried the under-tape toe drag, but didn't have the presence of mind to do so. Big pressure from the Germans trying to get a block back on Russia as they air that one out, get a bit of space downfield, chasing it down. So unfortunate. Anna Pustovaja just chases on the defensive knock forward from Nora Pool into space. Russia clearing up the garbage for a break. 4-2.
Yeah, that was, again, we see a nice trust throw put out into the space. Paul did a great job to get a touch on it, but with two white-shirted players underneath the disc, really couldn't make enough of a reaching grab to get a, to get a grab, which is what we have to do on this surface. Beach, obviously, so frequently is affected and impacted by wind here, Tom. So if you do not grab the Frisbee, if you don't try and actually physically tear it out of the air, twist it around, do something to just annihilate the flight path of the disc, you're gonna get rinsed. And situations like that, fine example.
The Germans doing a great job on defense, taking away the short options for the Russians. But with the high stall count, showing how important it is not to turn over on your own end zone line. And Russians coming up with the disc in the end zone for the point. And going to take any opportunity they can and ride their luck a little. But at the moment, Germans need to steady the ship. They don't need luck, this Russian side. They've been favourites coming into the tournament, and you can see why. Strong performances throughout.
Yeah, and it's nice to see the players that we normally see in the open and women's divisions coming together to form a fabulous unit indeed. So we see the D-line of Russia try and get another break.
Happy to let that swing pass go. Sagging off. Throw across from Kune to Pruns. Back to Kune again. And now Wolzak, the three women combining in this mixed final. Now to the other Arne Rausch. And two Arnes on the field at the same time, Gross and Rausch. Now it's with Pruns on the far side. Germany making sure of this one. They want to be scoring the offense to get the D-line back out there. Wolzak available. Arne Gross runs forward. Wolzak trying to dart and jink forward, and the disc just ahead of Parshakova, using the pace of Wolzak to get that point in.
Yeah, and Arne Rocha stands perhaps maybe egging on. Ultimate Community loves an underdog, and as we said, the Russians have been firm favourites throughout, just looking really powerful. Such epic discipline we've seen displayed throughout all of the teams, which is a real credit to the coaching structure of the Russian community. Really just firm hands at the helm and great players coming out of that system. These teams, all three of them, train twice a week. You see the wind starting to pick up. They train indoors, so this might become a factor, play into the hands of the Germans. But right now, Russia are looking ready to win a gold medal. I'm not sure Germany quite have warmed up yet.
Oh, that's a perfect pull right into the back of the end zone. as it starts up with Meistering and a short pass. Big pressure here. Vasiliev just face marking. Deep shot comes out of the end zone. Big bid from Anna Pustavaya. Can't stop the disc moving across, but the cross-field pass from Anna Rausch was too close to the sand.
Yeah, two cuts available in a very similar space, just maybe throwing off the concentration a wee bit. And a timeout call from the Russians. You really have to say, Tom, from the offense we've seen from the team in white, they really are happy to throw discs where perhaps other teams might hesitate with a wee bit of coverage, but the throwing prowess of them at the moment, they're just sitting in the perfect spots. At the end of that last point, I was talking about the fans perhaps favouring the Russians, maybe even the wind is. It just seemed to pop it physically down out of an area where Schumacher could make any kind of bid on it and just popped in for a clap-catch score.
There was a lot of pressure from Germany as the disc went into the end zone, but I mean, one of the factors we might have to deal with today is the wind coming from a completely different direction. Perfect surf conditions with the offshore breeze, the Atlantic waves. Nothing big out there, but nice beginner's surf, I guess.
Indeed, we've seen windsurfers, we've seen bodyboarders. This is a beautiful destination to play some ultimate frisbee, and the tourists here have been treated to quite a spectacle all week long. Beautiful field complex, great surface. This arena field is particularly nice. Oftentimes beach pitches can be a wee bit uneven, perhaps some, you know, grainy, nasty sand to lay out on. Some tournaments, they even recommend bringing your own pair of socks each day that you're going to completely tear to shreds by the end of play. Whereas this is just glorious.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Steve Giguère, in our commentary booth earlier this week, playing in the Great Grandmasters division this week, described it as the best surface he's ever played beach ultimate on. A great mix of being soft to lay out on, but good to run on.
And a great set of restaurants who I had the pleasure of just completely, one of the staff members in the restaurants along the boardwalk didn't know who I was at all, but just saw the shirt that I was wearing with the tournament logo on and said how really impressed they were. They have other sporting events here on the pitches in Praia da Rocha, but they were so impressed with the education, the spirit, and just the politeness of ultimate players. So credit to the players here for really showing the sport well, as we see a violation there. A little bit of tetchy movement far on the sideline.
The fast feet of Alexei Rudametkin. Just setting off a little bit before the disc was in play. Meistering taps in. Vasiliev fakes the deep shot. Meistering counts up. Disc is going to die away, and it's the first turnover. Second turnover of the game for the Russians. Germany have it back. So yeah, the wind is coming over the cliffs. It's the first time this week we've had the wind coming from the town towards the sea, where the end zone where Meistering is picking the disc up from now over to our right. And that's now the downwind end zone. But this swirling effect, it's come in very smooth before. Now it's going to swirl and bounce. It might create a few problems.
Well, this elite level, Tom, I'm not sure it will be too bad. These very capable throwers, but that's a bit too far in front of the 41 shirt. Nicholas Fink tries to keep it alive, but just can't.
Yes, the wind didn't seem to be the problem there. Don't know quite why he couldn't make a 20-meter forward pass to an open player.
Russia at the moment are just looking really smooth. They are now starting to have some perhaps execution errors, a little bit of lack of focus perhaps, but the team in red just seem to be jittery as it comes, Tom.
Yeah, not found their flow so far in this game, Hannah. Shot across the top, pressure underneath it, no call from the Russians. Meistering, this time he can't get rid of the fake with the attention of Rudametkin. Shot from Meistering is low. Now that one's not, it's caught the wind, it's going to fly high. And Vasiliev takes up the defensive duties, running the length of the pitch, and grabbing that one ahead of Volzak. Fink Arms outstretched. The disc from Vasiliev floats downwind, just caught outside the end zone by Tomikov and into Russian hands for the point.
Well, what a difference when the two teams exchange the discs. Suddenly, where the Germans look to be just having to absolutely pummel themselves underneath to try and find some cuts and make some flow, but the Russians all just immediately storm towards the end zone. Disc goes up.
Cross to the far side, Sasha Pustovaya. Dina Dumanskaya the target, it's floating high. Going to be towards the back of the end zone, and just that little breeze catching it right at the close, taking it away from the big receiver.
Well, we saw earlier the wind pushing the disc down and that being favorable for the Russians, but there is a teeny tiny bit of an overthrow. Perhaps the wind is a little bit gusty, so perhaps it was down and kind of, you know, we saw a bit of a forgetting about the wind. So Pustovaya putting it up. Nice big lofty backhand though, attacking that far break side space where the player isn't allowing Dumanskaya to try and make the play, but just a wee bit too far.
Schulenberg for Germany. They trail by 2. 3 breaks. Kochnitsky into the hands of Blank. Sense it. Well, this is just poor throws from Germany. They've had a few discs now that have just been way off where they needed to be.
See, that was actually an effective throw because it did manage to sort of come the side of the two players streaking deep that the defense wasn't expecting, but unfortunately the offensive player also wasn't expecting it to come on that right side. An inside break would normally, you'd sit it up in front, try and bend it around the defender, lots of sort of inside out on it, but not to be.
Didn't sit in the wind enough. The Russians with Novikov. Pass across to Lesiev.
Yeah, Nora Pearl there in the middle, sporting a tasty-looking black eye, the number 25 for Germany. Had a bit of a collision with her teammate, Charlotte Murndal, who's got a bit of a concussion, but she's now hopefully fully recovered from that.
Pustovaya receives the disc from Dumanskaya, looks downfield. Partner in crime awaits. Elsiev with the disc. German defender recovers. Novikov. Pass forward. Pustovaya again. Scott Balso and also Dumanskaya cutting. Quick movement for someone who's so tall, so fast. Uses that long stride across the sand to get away from pretty much anybody in this division. Deadly.
So that's a half taken by the Russian side. Score now 7-4 with a nice offensive hold. The Germans did have an opportunity to get a much-needed break back. They trail 3 breaks down currently. But the big thing I think about that play, Tom, is that the stature. We talk sometimes about how ultimate is a bit of a tall person's sport, and arguably if you've got, you know, that lower center of gravity, you can move rapidly. Certainly if you ever want to see how, you know, a height mismatch can be used to the advantage of the shorter players, watch the Japanese sides, either the men or the women, so good with their throwing capabilities. But with Kochnitsky on the mark there for Sasha Pustovaya, sorry, it was just a case of there was no real ability for Kochnitsky to make the play and stop that high release backhand. We've seen pretty much all of the Russian players use those high backhand dishes with lethal effectiveness throughout this entire tournament. If you watch the women's game, they use it. If you watch the men's game, it's just a really nice throw on this surface.
So coming out of half, the Russians on offense. Not seen too much of this Russian offense in the first half. The D-line's been very effective though. Pustovaya powers it into the wind, just caught shy of the end zone. Dumanskaya running deep. She's got Volzak for company, but can she get free? Waiting, trying to find an isolation, and the reset eventually comes. Russians being very patient here. Elsiev. Nice reset. Germans allowing them to have that pass available. Schumacher just trying to make sure he's a step ahead. Volzak bids against Dumanskaya, doesn't come up with it. And then a break to the break side. Nothing that Bazov could do to keep up. And the Russians taking this one away. They lead 8-4.
Yeah, Russia there looking very static, but at no point really did they seem under pressure. And we see again the height mismatch for the females of the Russian and the German side going to task. We've talked a lot about Levka Wolzak, the fact that she's so rapid. She's got a strong Instagram presence, which shows exactly why she is the athlete she is. It's at Levka if you want to follow her and be inspired. She's excellent. Hashtag Fitspiration, I believe there's the Fitspo. But
she was given the job of containing Dina Dumanskaya, though.
Exactly, and you just see
but
I think it looked by seeing how far he was away from the disc when he bid, I think he just like something went in his leg when he was making that run down, trying to use all of his energy. This is the final match, of course, for both these teams for at least a little while. Some of them doing double duty and will appear on grass in Hungary in a few months' time. But this is the moment, this is the place where you put it all on the line. You have to use every iota of energy that you have, but we get a bit of shade on the players as we hopefully see this one resolved.
Well, a little chance to talk about what's been going on around the rest of the tournament. The week of action out here has been a real festival of frisbee. Flags of the 22 nations representing the 88 teams fly above the grandstand. And there was a great party last night. Real mixture of players from all over the world.
There were. I was talking to Patrick this morning, Patrick van der Valk, about that party, Tom, and they actually had a little moment where they thought it might not come off as smoothly. Lots of players expected to attend. There was a small issue with the venue, but as with any good frisbee party, it came good in the end, and plenty of dance moves. I saw you busting a few grooves out there, Tom.
I was having a good time. Having a good time.
That is for sure. We saw conga lines, we saw a little bit of Macarena. It had it all.
Yeah, just coming back to this, the O'Farrell bar, which is the bar that directly sits behind the arena field here. It's the injury to Fink being resolved. They were selling 50 litres of beer every 30 minutes during their peak trade, or during the whole of yesterday. So very much enjoying a good atmosphere down on the pitch. And the players that have finished in the 4 Masters finals, Great Grandmasters, Grandmaster Men's, the Mixed Master and the Women's Master final all took place yesterday.
They did, and they were great spectacles out here on the stands. Lots of fans in the stands to enjoy those spectacles. To talk a little bit, Tom, around the division itself, though, focusing back onto the mixed scene here, the senior mixed players. Looking at the quarterfinals, and we see Russia pushed hardest by the Spanish in their quarterfinals on their route here. They were pushed to 11-9, and actually the previous time we saw these two teams meet on this live stream, it was a much closer game, a real grinder. We had some pretty long points, almost neck and neck. Middle of the game, the Russians pulled ahead. Germans broke it back, but then just enough to tussle. Perhaps the Russians playing a little bit more conservatively, though, in that match, not trying to show the real A game that they wanted to execute. Kind of, there's a bit of a black box, the Russian sort of strategy. Their coaches are very good at remaining tight-lipped, but the Russians having then gone on to dispatch, I believe it was a GB mixed on the live stream very handily, 13-5, whereas the Germans had a much easier quarterfinal, taking the Czech team to 13-6, the final score there, but they had a bit more of a challenge in semis against Portugal, 8-5 the final scoreline there, so perhaps gave a little bit too much in semis.
Merriman sends the disc deep downfield. It's going to be chased down by Anna Pustovaya, but Levka Volzak gets there first, and the crowd really backing the Germans as they chase this Russian side.
I don't know what was said in that long injury stoppage, Tom, but it seems to have got a bit more fire underneath the German defense. That was really good positioning, great work. A tussle to that far corner of the end zone, and the red comes up good.
So Schumacher sends it deep to Volzak. She's going to chase this one down, bids, but it was just too far ahead of her.
Oh, that was inches away, though, Tom. How close can you make it?
Vasiliev for Russia, leading this gold medal match against Germany 8-4. Schellenberg marking, Aramin on the disc. Stall count going high from Schellenberg. Lots of players underneath this. Who grabs first? Rising high. Anatoly Vasiliev takes it down for Russia. Finding a way in now. Floats it to the back of the end zone. Parshakova sweeps up and brings it in. But what another great effort from Anatoly Vasiliev, rising high above a pile of players and coming down with the disc in hand.
Yeah, Vasiliev, he just is far too good. He said his goal for this tournament was to get at least one hand block. He's he's not had any in the earlier stages of this this tournament, but he got gold at Worlds in 2008. 2 PAGA gold medals with made in the USSR, the mixed team. So just showing his experience here on the sand, going up big and strong, just really having a great game is the 36-year-old, originally from St. Petersburg, as we said. He's come back home to play with his countrymen and women, currently living over in Vancouver.
Interestingly, he credits Paul Eriksson as one of his sporting heroes, because he was the person that brought the sport of ultimate to Russia in the first place.
Well, fab. And then also to give a little shout, Vasiliev has actually created a brand called Flatball Collective, allowing creative players from around the world to showcase their craft and love for the sport. They make everyday apparel and other swag to let you wear your heart on your sleeve, even when you're off the field. So lots of community players here. The elites giving back so much of their time and heart to their communities.
Another great pull from the Russians deep in the end zone. Konitsky picks up via Meistering, and now into the center of the field with Rausch. Rausch has it back again now. The return pass from Poole. Poole on the sideline as a call goes up.
Yeah, big old battle there between number 55 for Germany, the very talented Melina Konitsky out of the Mainz team, plays for Meidel München. We sort of saw her break into the international media sort of go-to gals, as it were. Last year, she got lots of credit for her performances. She's marked up by Anastasia Malikova.
Poole.
Oh, and that's a lovely little piece taken away by Blasco.
The Germans just not finding their A game here on the big stage in front of the crowds. The Russians capitalizing with every mistake. They look hesitant with the disc in hand. The Russian defense are putting the pressure on at every opportunity. High stall count, but a calm and measured pivot and a spinning disc across the front of the end zone. Fast cut from Rudemetkin, and we are in a 10-4 situation here in the gold medal match.
I think that's Shebanyav on the disc there. He almost tore his body apart to get that around breakout. Interesting to see the Russians sort of basically just looking at one player. We've seen them happy to let their teammates upfield make a couple of cuts, but that was just an isolation play. And once again, the Russians just backing it. Really interesting. As I said, the first live stream game, the tussle between these two teams was very real. It was pretty much 1-1 up until 12 minutes into the game, which is really unusual. As I said, perhaps maybe the Russians throwing completely different looks in order to not allow the Germans to have prepared for what they were going to see in this game as effectively. But it's such a shame, Tom, to not see them able to keep their composure and come into this game strong. They had that early error, and that's a real, such a suck of all of your mental finesse when you just have a complete miscue, scooped up immediately by one of the big Russian defenders and popped in for that early break. They set the tone for this game, though. They set the tone so early to the Russians. Just a formidable presence, and they have that reputation, Tom. It's just, you know you're going to get physical defense. You know you're going to have to take away shots that are just so far out into the space with these big reaching bids for them. They have a well-earned reputation, deservedly so, but you just have to find something. Belief. That's what the Germans need right now. They need some belief. They've had a big comeback before. They'll no doubt have another one, but right now, Tom, they need to do something very special as we see one of their coaching staff, Rue Vettel, coming off the field.
Yeah, Nikki Prien and Rue Vettel leading from the sideline. The Russians come down, take away the options, but they could not stop the pass to Kune, and the disc from her too far ahead of Volzak into the sand. The errors coming thick and fast from the German O-line. That's their that'll be the 10th turnover.
Oh, and that's just devastating for Wolczak there, having to lean so far forward to try and make the catch on not the nicest disc in the world, and then to just lose her footing and get completely broken to the open side by her matchup. So the Russians now extend their lead. They are ahead 11-4 in this semi-final, final gold medal match. Goodness gracious me, Tom. I'm just so stunned by the play from the Russians. I can barely get the words out of my mouth.
Oh, it's been brutal, hasn't it? Every mistake from the Germans has been punished. Anya Pustovaya with the goal there out of Moscow, the 33-year-old, been playing for 16 years. Her sister, Sasha Pustovaya, she credits as being her ultimate sporting hero because, and I think we'd all agree here, her forehand is awesome. It really is.
Oh yes, textbook stuff for the fans at home looking to improve their throwing. The Russian women are definitely a fair shout to study their film.
Rausch with the disc. Oh, that is another example. It's a straight, just pivot out and throw a pass to a free receiver.
And it's so difficult to overthrow Koshnitsky. She's just really, really flipping good.
Rudametkin floats into the end zone, slamming to the floor, the disc from Tomikov, and that's they're beating the Germans because of German mistakes, and nothing worse than leaving a final feeling like you've let yourselves down. And the Germans must be in a pretty bad place mentally at the moment. They're trailing 12-4. Russians within one of taking the gold medal. They've undoubtedly been the best team in this competition.
And it is such a hotly contested mixed division. There's plenty of quality. As you say, Tom, the German side are going to watch this game back, and they're going to have a lot of lessons to take from it. They're just crumbling under the pressure that the Russians, they really have just gone to task the business end of this tournament. You cannot fault them. They're coming out strong, their connections are good, the trust, the faith. They really believe they can take the gold medal. I believe right now that they can take the gold medal. Hopefully we keep the game alive a little bit longer, but just one of the things to point out, the way the Russians move on sand. They've been taught by a 2-time world beach soccer champion, and that really seems the movement. They're just ripping up into the open side at the moment against the Germans. Yeah, their heads are down, but oh my goodness, how these white-shirted players move on the sand.
Schumacher, disc to Rausch, disc to Gross on the far side.
Big battle there. Pavel Eremin on the mark.
And full foul call from Gross into the end zone. Blazko's got a better read on it. The disc from Gross was over the head of Wolzak. It's just an upline pass from the Germans that didn't connect.
And Wolzak didn't have the position. She wasn't really open. In terms of her mark, it's much better position to where that disc was being shot to. Eremin now on the disc.
Russians with a chance to take the gold medal in this possession if they can, sending it deep. Chasing it down is Jurasov. He catches at the back of the end zone. And the European Beach Ultimate champions in the mixed division are Russia. A completely brutal defeat for the Germans. Every single mistake has been punished with clinical offense. The Russians pushing the Germans well out of their comfort zone. The Germans not responding, and not the performance they would have wanted to put into this final. But you can't take it away from the Russians. They take home the gold medals.
And what a display we've been treated to by the Russian mixed side. That second half completely unanswered. They just went on an absolute roll, tore the Germans' hearts open, cutting to the open side, moving so well together. Trust and faith, really, really well deserved. We'll see them celebrate this evening. They have a little post-game ritual, Tom, of going into the water together, getting a nice ice bath, and they can party hard this evening. So well deserved. As we said, the favourites coming into this division, and the players add a mixed championship, so they are already quite full, brim-full Russian trophy cabinet here on the sand. We'll bring more action to you throughout the day. What more stats can we say about that game, Tom?
Well, I just noticed the last 5 points have been breaks to Russia, and 4 of them have been done in one pass, and the other one was 2 passes. Just that efficiency and any mistake being punished quickly with big, long shots from the Russians. It's been an impressive performance.
And it's been a pleasure to watch.
Really has, yeah. Celebrate with the fans in the stands. As Hannah was saying, we've got more action coming to you from the beaches in Portimao throughout the day. Do stay with us. From Tom Stiles, from Hannah Pendlebury, and from the rest of the Ulti.tv crew. Do join us back later, and thanks for watching.